Hey everyone, Jeremy here. Thanks for joining this new segment I'm calling the Debrief. This is a little bit of audio that we recorded at the end of the session that we posted earlier this week, where we're kind of discussing the future of the game and some different things we want to try. So, I hope you enjoy it. So, that's everything I'd planned for this time around. I have a guest player lined up for the next time. I've got an interesting scenario that I want to run. So, I'm going to bring someone in for a game or two for you guys to play with. It's Tobias, so you both know him. Well, I mean, John, you've met him a couple of times, but...
I think so, yeah.
He was at the wedding and all of that. So,
okay, sounds good.
I also wanted to ask you guys how interesting is this game for you guys? Like, is this something that y'all want to keep? Like, what sort of things are y'all personally interested in by continuing to play this game?
I mean, I like the mystery solving elements of it. I do not like the level of admin, and I don't know if that's, our unfamiliarity with the game or, something else.
What do you mean by the level of admin?
What have we done for the last 30 minutes?
Okay.
I mean, we had to make some choices. Yeah, but I didn't really.
I can make a little handout for home scenes. That way, all of that information I was reading out is available in the
right.
Game.
It's not that it's like. I mean, that's something that's necessary. Is like the lunar interludes were the part of the Amateur Zone I liked the least as well.
Right.
It's just a kind of a necessary element. I like the mystery solving stuff. I like doing like some of the acting type stuff. Occasionally we hit a roadblock, and you're probably hinting at something that we should have been paying attention to, but I feel like I'm not really picking up on those hints sometimes, which is a little frustrating.
Yeah, I've kind of thought about that over the past couple of days, especially like last week or whenever it was when I was on vacation and, blasted out a bunch of audio. And like there was times when like you guys were spinning your wheels and I could tell you were kind of frustrated by that. I want to think of a way to to kind of help you guys out with that when you feel like you're spinning your wheels. Maybe a clearer way of you guys communicating it, because sometimes like when I'm in the moment, like I was like, oh, you guys are talking it out and trying to figure it out, and then when I'm listening back to it, I'm like, oh, they're actually really frustrated that, like, for instance, whenever I'm asking you what you want to do, it's because I don't want you guys to feel like I'm trying to railroad you during a particular way. And sometimes y'all don't want that. Y'all want to get to a particular place. And then if the situation changes, I ask you what you want to do, and y'all still want to do the same thing. So.
Well, and two, like for example, just now with Esme as my character, you say, "What are you going to do?" and I respond, and you don't like that answer, so you ask me again, or give me a different option, and that gets very frustrating. Or if my answer is, "I'm going to wait until this thing happens so I can see what happens," and you think that's boring, or it's not giving you enough time on our playtime or whatever, and you want more content from me, so you ask again instead of saying, "Well, that's boring." Just go ahead and tell me, like, "Hey, don't just do this, here's some other things you could do," or whatever. But when you ask over and over again what we're doing when we've already answered that question, for me especially, it gets very frustrating.
Yeah. So I know, like, in the Adventure Zone, like, Griffin, like, he's sarcastic, sometimes. When, a character, someone says they want to do something that you think he doesn't really think is sort of, like, grasping the situation. Like, you have the right to, like, be not serious. If you think that, like, we're not not noticing something, or you know, we're doing something that seems ludicrous. And you've done that a few times. I'll be like, I want to do this, and you're like, so you're gonna walk over this dead body to get there. I'm like, oh right, there's a dead body. You can do that, Jeremy. You don't have to be like totally like neutral and standoffish. Like, you know, I don't know if if that's something that you're trying to do, which is admirable, but I don't think it's entirely necessary all the time.
Okay.
Because like I understand the fear of wanting to like railroad, but you know.
Yeah, like, one of the things that I want is I want you guys to not feel like I'm trying to walk y'all from clue to clue to clue from point A to point B. I want to give you guys the opportunity to try to figure it out. But I do want you guys to know that if you're, like, my goal as the handler in this game is not to just straight up murder you guys. Because, like, I was telling Tabitha this, like, if I was running the adventure that I just ran, like as written, then Cindy should have been blotted out of all existence when she tried to kill Dottie, which is kind of fun, but not as interesting as I think it needed to be. So, like, I am going to tweak some things.
Well, I don't mind being railroaded a little bit. Like, if you feel like we need to be guided to the next place, like if we're getting frustrated, giving us a little bit of hint. But if you're going to railroad us, don't hide the tracks. Like...
Yeah. And like earlier this time, I forget exactly what was going on, but like, you know, we're waiting for it to be noon for her to kill herself. You're like, all right, you gonna do anything about it? I'm like, you know, I was just sort of like, I don't see the point of asking us that, I guess. I mean, yeah, because it's sort of like, we had already talked about how, like, this needed to happen. So in my headspace, I was already like, okay, well, we have to let her kill herself. And, like, Tabitha even said that. And then you're like, all right, it's 15 minutes till. Don't give us the 15 minutes. Just say, all right, it's noon, and she's doing it.
I wasn't completely... I wasn't 100% on my end that Cindy had convinced herself that it needed to happen.
Okay.
So that was just me making sure that I gave you the opportunity to interfere if you wanted to or not.
Okay.
But
yeah, I mean, because how I read that was, there's something you're missing, John, or there's something you're missing, Esme. But it in truth, there wasn't, right? There was nothing we were missing. You were just giving us the freedom to make some other choice.
I was giving you the freedom to fuck it all up if you wanted to.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, and I understand giving us that option, but don't give it to us 15 times. Because that feels like what John just said.
It was, it was 11:45, and I was sort of like, is there anything to do? Should I do anything? And I like spoke that out, and then you're like, okay, so you guys are gonna wait, and then you're like, and then you just move time ahead a little bit, but it still wasn't noon. I was like, is he just adding pressure for like us figuring out the thing to do? And I just felt like that wasn't. That wasn't your goal. You were just trying to make sure that we could do something else if we wanted to. But I was pretty sure that, like, on what we had to do, like, I wasn't happy with it because it didn't make a lot of sense to me, personally. But, seemed like that was what needed to happen. Yeah. And, like, I didn't feel this way on the prior arc, really. So I don't know if it was something about, like, this one and, like, the mechanics of how the weirdness was happening were kind of maybe vague to... I think they were vague to me, either for misunderstanding or something else, but it also sounded like maybe it was a little bit vague to you as well. So...
I mean, it's definitely kind of a hard thing to describe because it's the same thing happening over and over again to a woman who doesn't remember it happening at all, but she has to do the same things over and over again. And, like, trying to imagine how that sort of loop interacts with the world outside of it got a little weird sometimes, for sure.
Now, I didn't like it at the time, but afterwards, like, Cindy losing her arm, I was more okay with. I was like, that's fair. So, like, I appreciate, like, and it totally making sense for her to not have lost her arm entirely, in how I understand the mechanics of the situation. Like, at the time, like, I was pretty, like, just, I'm not going to say angry. I was just sort of, like, lost. I was like, okay, like, I decided that this wall wasn't moving, and it seemed like it should, so I just pushed on it until you did something to me bad, which made sense. I was like, at the time I was annoyed, but then, like, you know, probably later that night or the next day, I was like, no, I mean, there's stakes, you know, and that's fine for there to be stakes. Yeah. But the problem was still, like, well, if we can't stop her from doing it, and Jeremy keeps asking us, well, what are we going to do? And all we can think of to do is wait, that must still be the wrong answer.
So that is something that happens with, and I've seen you and Tabitha both come up to this already, is that sometimes you don't have all of the information, but it feels like you need to act anyway, and you don't have the opportunity. Like, the first time that y'all went into the house, y'all got a lot of information, but you didn't have all of the information that you needed, but you felt like you had all of the information. Does that make sense?
No.
So, you, like, when you and Esme were trying to get Dottie out of the house, and she wasn't leaving, and, like, it felt very, from what I recall, it seemed to feel kind of arbitrary to you guys what was happening, because...
I mean, I felt like it was obvious we didn't have all of the information, but it also felt obvious that you were not willing to give us any more information at the house at that time.
Yeah, like, why couldn't I go upstairs?
So I didn't have you go upstairs because there wasn't any information about what's upstairs inside the book, so it wasn't very relevant. And then after we had that break between those two sessions, and I read through it again, I was like, well, the scenario doesn't describe at all where the scroll's at, or where the sundial's at, or... Like, it makes sense to me that Dottie might have some mementos from her time as an archaeologist somewhere in her house. So where would that be? And y'all had kind of explored all of downstairs, so I decided, oh, well, we'll just put it upstairs once you decide to break into upstairs. So it was kind of... That was kind of me realizing that there needed to be more clues than there were, and then putting stuff out there. Like, it didn't make sense for that stuff to not already be in her house, but where was it gonna be at? So
okay.
So, like, the first time you tried to go upstairs, there literally wasn't anything upstairs. Like, there was no reason for you to go upstairs. Like,
And then later, when we went upstairs,
there needed to be some... I had realized that there needed to be something in the house. Y'all hadn't been upstairs yet. So that was just me trying to make the world make sense, rather than, oh, you know, this stuff appears out of nowhere, which, you know, could kind of make sense with Eldritch stuff going on, but it doesn't really, you know.
Okay,
so that makes
sense.
Yeah, like, at first, yeah, there was nothing upstairs, which is why I told you couldn't go upstairs, because there wasn't anything up there, and then there was, so.
Okay.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, speaking, like John earlier was speaking about stakes in the game, there are going to be some, there might be some situations in the future that Esme and Cindy are not equipped to deal with at all. I kind of hinted at that a little bit when I was talking about the, like, why Cell K was formed, in that you guys have both been kind of inquisitive, investigative types, but you don't have any sort of combat experience at all. And Delta Green is not really the sort of game where throwing bullets at the problems will solve it, but sometimes that might be what you need.
Well, if I recall correctly, throwing several 100 pounds of dynamite solves most problems.
one of the things that I wanted to ask y'all this time around is if you guys wanted to make a couple of characters to be a kill team. This like they're sort of agent. Like I've kind of like been thinking that it would be the two agents that you guys have met a couple of times now that you've dropped stuff off with. Or maybe it'd be other people entirely, but these would be people who have like hardened combat experience that if Esme and Cindy get in a situation where they feel like they're over their heads, then they can call Karen and, call in a strike team, something like that. So these would be alternate characters that you could play as if you wanted to, or you could just, if you found, like, if you needed to raid a compound, if Cindy and Esme decide that the only way to solve a problem was to raid a facility, these characters would be like backup that you could contact the group and call in for backup.
And that way you could kill our secondary characters and not have to feel bad.
Well, it would have. I mean, I think that is certainly one way to read it. I mean, I would not. You had mentioned, like, when we started, I think that Delta Green is a game where you end up making a lot of characters because people die or go insane.
Right.
I'm not super interested in Cindy being disposable. Because I don't want to redo the character creation process, I guess, until I feel, she's more developed, more interesting, I guess.
Right, and that was one of the reasons why
I
pulled my punch with the other time.
Yeah, so I'm okay with our characters getting scarred, but I, would rather not have to start over, so I do understand, have a kill team, as in people that would have skills that we don't have, and also I wouldn't feel too bad if they got killed. I mean, that sounds... as opposed to going into some place where we're unequipped, I'd rather play as some other character who I don't care about. Or that, is intended to be disposable, more or less.
I don't plan on these characters being intended to be disposable. Like, I definitely want them to be characters, but they're gonna be the muscle, basically.
Okay. I mean, like, I can see why it would be helpful to have people like that, so I'll be thinking about it, I guess.
Yeah, if we had something like that, it would open up a couple of scenarios that, I've been kind of picking scenarios that I feel like Esme and Cindy can handle by themselves. So, not one where you have to, the answer is put a ton of bullets into a shuddering horror. The very first one was kind of about as close as it's gotten. Like, it could have gone a different direction with Let's Learn to Speak Aklo, but you guys talked the blue man down rather than having him whip out his ghostly Tommy gun to riddle you with faster than light bullets, so...
I guess that's good.
But, I was reasonably confident that it wouldn't get to that point because that's not how you guys are playing your characters. Like, you guys are playing your characters as, non-combatants, so you're seeking solutions that don't involve violence most of the time, unless you're just really frustrated with old ladies.
Yeah.
Man, both of the people that y'all have tried to kill so far have been women. What does that say about you guys?
Well, we are women. I mean,
internalized misogyny.
The baddies have mostly been women.
What does that say about you, Jeremy?
Quote, baddies have been women, Jeremy. So
Dottie is a baddie? A woman trapped inside of a septic tank is a baddie?
She did try and murder us as soon as we let her out of the septic tank. So I think that qualifies as baddie.
So y'all did start by trying to pour gasoline on her.
I didn't.
That was an opening salvo right there, if I've ever seen one.
Well, but it's harmless until we light it. So
It's not. It's
It'll dry your
carcinogenic.
skin out.
Yeah, but
It'll
she's
dry
not
your
going to get
skin out.
cancer and die that night.
She might.
She was already like 400 years old or whatever. Yeah, but I've been looking forward to our sessions. I've not been looking forward to the admin, which happens periodically, or the some of the gameplay stuff. But overall,
Okay.
So, if that was one of your questions.
I'm glad that you're enjoying it. It's good for me to know the parts of the game that you guys are enjoying, because I want to focus on those parts, because that's what is going to make the game enjoyable for all of us.
Yeah.
If
so
just do
how do you
what
get
Jeremy
in the
wants
building?
to do.
Like, how do you get in the building? Like, what do you look for? Like, what do you check for? Like, I like that stuff, which we did a little bit of in this round.